NDME TV.com, the Everybody Network.
Hello and welcome to Tell My Story. I'm your host, Marcus Lantero. It's an interesting topic that we're going to be going over today. We've all had dreams and aspirations of doing something that we wanted to make special in our life. And that journey sometimes is somewhat hard because life takes on a whole different role within itself. Sometimes you have to veer off that because you have to pay bills, you have family responsibilities, whatever that case may be. I'm in the acting profession, and I've had the opportunity of being in movies and TV and infomercials. But with that journey came struggle. It's been many, many years to get to the position where I'm at today, and that journey still continues. I've got a special guest with me today, Stanley Butler, a good friend of mine, an independent artist in his own right, a musician. He's going to educate me what it's taken him to get where he is here today. I'm excited, so please stay tuned. We'll be back right after the break. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Tell My Story. If you recall, right before the break, I had mentioned about a good friend of mine by the name of Stanley Butler. So without further ado, let me take this moment to introduce you to Stanley Butler. Stanley, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Marcus, how you doing?
I'm good, and thanks for coming in.
Oh.
Our first show, and you're it. I figured if I'm going to start this, I'm starting it with you.
Oh, my God, I'm so blessed.
Well, thank you for being here. So, I wanted you here because I think you're the perfect person to let us all know, myself included, even though I've got an idea, but the audience here doesn't. Give us an idea of where it all began, how it started.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It all started for me in New York City. I'd have to say in the 50s.
Okay.
I'm that old, and...
You don't look a day over 25.
Oh, thank you. I still tell people I'm 27.
All right, good.
But from the days I remember, I grew up in New York City, like I said, and my parents. My father is Bahamian from the Isle of Nassau, like he was born on the boat coming here, whatever. And my mother's from the South, South Carolina. So in that, there was like this music going on in my home. I remember hearing like Ray Charles and one guy in particular named Aaron Collins. Ooh. And this was a Jamaican calypso kind of music.
Okay. That
I grew up with. So if we're talking about my upbringing,
sure,
how I got into music. But my father, he danced professionally, actually. My father danced in some of the Marx Brothers movies.
Really? Now, see, I wasn't even aware of that at all.
Yeah. One that I remember is Day at the Races. There's this scene of Lindy Hop dancers, and my father's in it. So,
wow.
From what I hear, he was always the hit at the clubs. Okay? He was always the big hit. Like my mother would tell me, all the women would line up to dance with him. So I think there was like, how they say the genes pass through.
Yeah.
So I think there was something there. And the first instrument I ever played, believe it or not, was the spoons. You would take two spoons. In the islands, they take these big spoons.
Okay.
And you slap them on your legs and you get a rhythm.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So I was 3 years old when I remember.
So you started at a very young age. So you the concept of the musical background started at, as you mentioned, at 3. So
I remember.
Yeah,
I remember at 3 years old.
Wow.
Like playing the spoons, and I just knew this calypso beat. and just play it all the time. But I drifted away from that and fell in love with baseball. You know, I was a Mickey Mantle fan, New York
sure.
Yankees, and my
Yeah.
father loved baseball too. So I was basically a shy kid that wouldn't want to show my talents. I was afraid, I guess at that time, I had this sense of failure. I somehow got this at a young age. So
Okay.
I wouldn't exhibit my best. So music was something I hid.
And the music you would think would be the thing to get you. I'm guessing it's kind of like a shyness that
Yeah.
you were trying to
Yeah,
get out of.
but I couldn't deal with it.
Okay.
But it seemed like in baseball I could. I could take out some anger, I guess, hitting the ball.
Sure.
And doing all that. But deep inside, I always wanted to play.
Okay.
So I put this away. And the reason I mentioned my mother too, to go back, I would see her play piano, because her faith, I think it was Methodist.
Okay.
And so she would be playing the piano and sing and stuff like that. I would hear it, but I would never perform. Only when I would go visit my aunt, who lived like what we call upstate in a place called Croton, New York. And her husband, my Uncle Bill, had this piano. He was a classical pianist.
Yeah, a lot of musicians around you. A lot of entertainment.
So me and my cousin would play, two guys, we'd be on the piano. And I would be playing, he would be playing the left hand bass, doom 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 doom, and I'd be playing playing that part.
Okay.
So we would just have this combination go on for like years, Me and Billy would play. And I remember my aunt and uncle would laugh and stuff. And then I'd come back to the city and wouldn't involve myself in music at all.
Really, you just kind of like shut down, and that was just decided that. Yeah. Okay.
A different class of friends. And
Okay.
I was always a good dancer, very good dancer, and I'd go to all these parties and wouldn't dance.
Okay.
I was, like I said, I was always battling this, I guess insecurity is the word now. And, so as I continued growing up through school, I had problems in school, kicked out of schools and public buildings I couldn't go, and I was a bad kid.
Okay.
It was bad.
Well, we would call that today maybe a ruffian.
Yeah, and so through this, I started doing bad things.
I want you to talk more about those bad things because
Okay.
this is becoming very, very interesting. So please stay tuned. We'll be back with Stanley Butler in a moment. Hello and welcome back to Tell My Story. My guest again today is Mr. Stanley Butler. And Stanley, please, take off from where you left off here about your young childhood and everything. Very interesting story. This is what I meant about being raw, letting the people know
Oh yeah.
your beginnings to where we are. So
Yeah.
please continue. Yeah.
And I think where I was saying, I got in a lot of trouble in school.
Yes, you did, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. And my father passed when I was 14, going on 15 years old. And he was a pretty disciplinarian type of guy. And
Strict.
yeah, and he would deliver,
Oh,
He'd
very
deliver.
strict.
Yeah,
Okay.
he'd deliver a couple. And so I think after he passed, I went on this binge. But all of this led to me playing music. I dabbled in things, drugs and stuff like that some of us had to go through. And through that is actually how I got started in music. Seriously, when that moment clicked.
Do you think it was maybe with the passing of your father that maybe you needed to reach for something and music seemed to be the good companion that you wanted to go with?
Yeah, And I was hanging with this different type of crowd in New York City.
Okay.
You know, I just evolved into a different aspect. And, you know, we were doing drugs, but I'd have to say we were smart. You know, we did it in a certain kind of way and would always go high. But I met this guy, and his name is Robert Leon.
Okay.
He's no longer with us, but he was just an amazingly talented musician. Amazingly, you know. I remember he played saxophone, guitar, drums, every possible thing. And this was like 1970 when I met him. And so I would always tell Robert, show me how to play. Show me how to play. And he was like, yeah, I don't know, you know, we're getting high and stoned, everything, you know, yeah, I want to learn how to play, man, you know. So this went on for like a year.
Okay.
And one time, because me and him were really buddies on getting stoned together. So one time he invited me to come join him in the Pocono Mountains.
No man's land, I guess, in a way. If you want to call it
I
that.
wouldn't come home for 3-4 days.
Okay, so you definitely were. You were,
I was a wild
you were at
one.
the outpost.
Yes. And my mother would be, where's my boy? You know, getting in trouble every now. But this weekend I went there and I met these two other guys who were in his band, a guy named Mike Kimmel and Daryl Moss. And Daryl's no longer with us, but so was this trio of band, and I watched them play this night.
Mm-hmm.
And later on at night, I asked Rob, I said, come on, man, show me how to play. He's like, you really want me to show you how to play? I want to go to sleep. And I said, no, show me how to play, man. Show me how to play. You know, because I used to beat him up and stuff like that, punch him around, and, you know, kiddingly.
Yeah.
And I said, I tell you what, if you teach me how to play, and it was a bass there, you know, I'll let you hit me with this stick. For every mistake that I make, you can hit me with a stick.
Okay.
He liked that.
Yeah, I mean...
He went for that. I can hit you.
See, audience, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Just pay attention to this with him right now. Now we're getting the good stuff.
Yeah. I said, yeah, you could hit me. So, you know, he was brilliant. Actually, his father, Jaime Leon, was the director of the American Ballet Theater at Lincoln Center in New York City. So Robert was a
definitely
very blessed musician.
Yeah.
And so he showed me, I asked him to show me every note on the bass.
Okay.
And he figured out a system that I use to still teach. When I teach students today, I teach the same way he taught me.
Good method.
Yes. So anyway, we're going through the neck, and I made only like 5 mistakes. I remembered.
5 mistakes, 5 hits.
Yeah, but it's poof, poof, and he hit me and stuff. But those guys went to sleep, and I stayed up all night playing. The 3 of them. And then they woke up, and they saw me still playing. They said, oh, Stan, he really wants to play.
So you really found a love affection with this.
Yeah, I did. And it just, that first day, with that intensity.
Okay.
And watching them, because it was like the musician's dream back in the early days where we lived together and you woke up playing music and you didn't sleep, you know, you just woke up and that's all you did. So that's how I was really introduced to actual playing instruments.
But that's a good thing in a way, because my guess is being involved in a situation like that gives you the opportunity to eat, sleep, dream, and just play.
Exactly.
And that's the perfect scenario because you're really learning everything. Talk about being engulfed in something. I'm guessing.
Yeah, you're right.
Listening to you right now, that is the perfect way.
I think so.
Oh,
I think so.
I agree.
Yeah, it was
very interesting.
And I lived with these guys basically on the road for like 2 years.
Okay.
And so I wasn't in the band, you know.
Oh.
But I just was the 4th brother or whatever, and we were going around, you know, doing little concerts in town.
What a learning experience.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
And so I carried that with me.
Okay.
To my next phase in life, then
Okay.
I started playing with different acts in New York City.
Okay, well, let's hold on that because we have to take another commercial break, but I want to pick up on that and then lead us into where you are and what you're doing today.
Yes.
So please stay tuned because I have Mr. Stanley Butler here with us. Great entertainer, perfect friend. Hold on. I'm here with Stanley Butler, and we were talking about his days leading up and going into New York, which brought me into, real quickly, if you don't mind me bringing this up, my humble beginnings in Chicago. Starting out in junior high school, being in some of the local productions and things like that, and it kind of faded away in high school because playing sports and just doing whatever else you do when you're in sports in high school, and then going to college and taking up some acting courses and having that opportunity to get a taste of acting and a little bit of modeling and being in the big city and learning it that way, which kind of lends itself, I'm guessing, with you being in New York. I think that probably catapulted you to the next segment. Am I right in that
Yes,
assumption?
in some ways.
Yeah.
Because when I was learning, I basically was learning in Jersey, New Jersey.
Okay.
And so I come from New York in this area of called the Amsterdam Projects. It's right in mid-Manhattan.
Okay.
So it's a community. But when I came back home to my neighborhood, people didn't take me seriously. You know, they were like, "Well, he's a baseball player." He's a sport-"
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Okay.
They didn't get it.
They didn't pay no mind.
Pay
with the
no
other.
mind.
Okay.
What's he trying to do now?
Sure.
You know, da, da, da. So I went through these series of guitar players because I played bass. You know, that I had.
And you're very good at bass.
Oh, thank you. Who
Very
I had
good.
seen growing up. You know, like I used to watch neighborhood bands play.
Okay.
And so there was about 3 guys that could play guitars, and I started with one, another, and then the third guy who I thought was really the best, who I loved, was actually an old kindergarten friend, and his name is Richard Berrios.
So you started to mimic these people as far as learning
Yeah.
the ins and outs of the craft. Is that right? Is that what you're?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was watching,
Okay.
them play for years. Remember I had that shyness and that insecurity
right.
about really showing myself, but I was doing it in Jersey, but not in New York. You know, I'd come to New York and
Big time, big city.
Yeah, you know. So then I got together, and me and Rick were practicing, and he's my best friend today, and so we was getting little bands together, and then I started organizing little bands, and then I met this other guy named Joe Ortiz, who lives in England now. Just another great genius, perfect pitch kind of guy.
But people you stay in touch with, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah,
right?
they're
So these
my
are certain
friends.
people that are okay.
Oh, yeah,
Good.
yeah, so-
and it's good to have that too.
Oh yeah. So I was the ringleader. I was, so I really was fortunate to play with my best friends, another guy named John Doty, and we formed these bands, and we just stayed together and recorded for years, and through there I started really cutting my teeth.
Sure.
And Joe, he was somebody that I always say to Joe, gave me my ears, because you had to be serious playing with him, So
And I'm guessing so the audience understands by giving your ear means you get pitch, you understand sound, you're able to have the clarity to put the notes together and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a seriousness you learn, because I grew up playing by ear. So.
Oh, really? So you didn't look at notes? It was
no. So
which is a craft. I want the audience to know, like in acting, when people are learning line for line versus improv. Improv gives you a little bit more of a feel of the character. When you're learning lines, you may become mechanical. So in Stanley's behalf here, and correct me if I'm wrong so the audience knows, learning by ear, your range becomes better than always watching the note. Am I correct in my
Yes.
assumption with that?
in the beginning.
Okay.
I believe now in the beginning.
All right.
And so I was able to have this feel.
Okay.
And I always had this sound from the Calypso days with the spoons.
Back to those spoons.
So I always added this island thing to whatever I play. As I have this, and Joe would say, "You got this hop in your bass playing, just little hop."
So you had your own sound.
I had my own sound always.
Nice.
And so I was able to organize bands, and through all of that, I started meeting more people in the higher ups, like one guy like a Delmar Brown, who's again no longer with us, but fabulous musicians and kind of mentored me.
So if I understand you correctly then, so being in New York and that, fast forward to where we are today, you stay in contact with your very close friends, which with your sound that you're bringing today is where you're interjecting it to your music that you play today, right?
Yes.
So are you playing a lot of your gigs here, or are you still traveling, or how? I mean, so the audience gets an idea of where you are today. But I'll tell you what, I want to save that since we're moving forward on that, because we're obviously coming back to another break. So I want you to let the people know from your days of New York to where you are now out here in California, the connection and where we're at. So please, Stanley, you cool?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Gonna hang with me longer? All right. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back with my guest, Stanley Butler. Thank you. Stanley, you were telling us about how the progression has started for you now moving into Los Angeles. And if you don't mind me just bending your ear for a minute, it just brings to light, and like I say, you're a good educator here. My humble beginnings being in the film and getting into my first film project, thinking, all right, we're on a roll, we're starting to move, and then it takes and catapults me onto the next film and the film after that. The highs that just come along with this as the progression continues. I want you now to let the audience, and even educate myself a little bit more, give us some of the highs that you have now coming into Los Angeles, and it may even reflect going back to New York that brings you back to Los Angeles. So the floor is yours. Let us know that journey, where you're at now and how it's progressed you to become who and what you are now.
Well, yeah, interesting that you do say from New York did lead to Los Angeles.
Right.
And in New York, I think I had some good highs there. I was playing more like jazzier kind of music, more progressive. And I was in this community of those type of musicians. Dave Valentin, I remember one of a great Latin flutist who's no longer with us. Again, Jaco Pastorius. He was... at the time, the world's greatest bass player known, and he took me kind of under his wing.
You've had a lot of good educators in your time.
And so back then I remember thinking, I'm getting there. I'm getting on top here, playing around.
See, audience, this is the good stuff. Pay close attention here.
I think I got invited to play with Miles Davis's band, and I messed that up.
Really?
I totally messed that up. That's a story that was too silly.
That'll be for chapter 2. We'll hold on to that one. That's a teaser, folks.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And so I was playing around New York, and things just got dry and bad around that time.
Okay.
And then I had to come out to California. And my good friend Rick Barrios had set up this production deal that we were working on.
Okay.
We was doing writing music for videos at the time. A woman named Doreen Rivera to be one. We kind of like the health videos back in the day, back in the 80s, this stretch, wellness type of thing. So
that's kind of where I get where you're going with the health, which is a good platform back in the day to be noticed. So I'm guessing that was your first step up the ladder in success, is my guess.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm
felt
thinking
that
that is a good way, I guess, to interject yourself into the California scene.
Yeah,
right?
that's why I came out here.
Okay.
Came out here to, write music and get into that type of industry. I mean, that what was happening.
Okay, so like yourself and here as well, and which lends me to be out here in California now too. It's interesting, folks, being out here in California, and Stanley can back me up on this. The way of life here is completely different than you'll find back in the Midwest or East Coast, and how you learn your craft. And me being in show business, us both being in show business, me on the movie side, you on the music side. My guess is this is where it really took off for you to learn another segment of your craft, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and because that was more of the recording
Okay.
side of it,
Okay.
and not more of the performance. It's you're getting into writing music, and so at that time it was more of the breakthrough of electronic music and using synthesizers and keyboards to produce music.
Which was a whole new realm for you being out here.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
And also a good thing that I did, I went back to college.
Oh, good for
when I got
you.
out here.
Again, something else. I wasn't even aware of you going back to school.
Yeah, I went back to school.
Good.
And
Good for you.
I ended up actually teaching a class.
Congrats.
I was like, how you say, grandfathered in on the table. I didn't have a degree, but I was teaching the class to
Okay.
help because I learned real fast. Okay, and so the teacher made me like the assistant teacher. Then I went on to just teach classes there.
Again, you're a special individual. I mean, folks, another reason why I've got Stanley here, and he's just mentioning this now, is because of his background and his style, his skill, his educational background that he can give people. Again, Stanley, you're a rare commodity, and another reason why I'm glad you're on the show. But please continue. I just want the audience to really listen in close, because Stanley Butler is a unique, very unique individual, and a classic guy at that too. So please continue. I'm just trying to give you your props along the way here,
that's cool.
Stanley. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm proud to have and be a friend.
Oh, you're a good friend.
Thank you.
And it's this business, it's turned into you have to just reinvent yourself. Along with that, I never thought I could do it. I had to do it, and because a lot of times I was just by myself.
Okay.
So I start out with this little 4-track, and then you just learn, and then I went to school. Then I took up jazz arranging, and I was doing well with it, and then it all started making sense because remember I didn't read music
Right.
earlier, and I would say to all young musicians out there, reading music is very important, and especially in today's where things are being almost handed to us
Okay.
to play. The art is getting lost at some times.
Okay, so we're learning more about the highs, and that's, audience, that's a very important thing to learn about our business. But when we come back off this next break, I want Stanley to interject. There's many, many lows that you go through for the few highs that make all this worthwhile. Because I don't want people to think that all of a sudden you're a star because you're here, such as Stanley Butler is. Stanley had a lot of trials and tribulations to get here. So after this break, Stanley, do you mind giving some of the backdrop of the real lows that just punch it along to get you here? We good with that? All right, so audience, please stay tuned. I'm here with Mr. Stanley Butler, and we'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Tell My Story. My special guest again, Mr. Stanley Butler. Stanley, where we left off was our journey on coming to your specific high. And I'll give you an example. This way you'll see where I'm headed with this. Mine was the very first movie that I had the opportunity to partake in. I thought, okay, I've made it now, and things are going to rock and roll, and the progression going on to the movie since. That is my high as an actor, but more importantly, I want you, there's got to be one specific high that you really thought was the pinnacle of making who you are today, or what you thought you are today with this? So, my friend, the floor is yours again. Bring me to the promised land.
Oh, wow. It's the world of the highs and the broken heart.
Yeah.
And the broken-hearted. What comes with a broken-hearted? Well, there's been a few.
Okay.
But to keep it compressed.
Yeah, let's keep it going.
Like in New York,
Okay.
when I was with Dave Valentine and playing, that was with GRP Records and everything, I thought I was gone. I told
thought
the
you were
neighborhood,
there,
bye-bye. And I'm playing in Carnegie Hall, and my friends are sitting in the front row drinking beer and everything, and I'm saying...
And they're watching you.
They're watching me, and I'm out of here, and that didn't work out. Had the broken heart, and a lot of it's because I couldn't read music, at that time.
Okay, but it was still considered one of your highs, which kind of catapulted you to the next, my guess would be correct?
I think the next one was coming here, like I said, when we was doing the videos, and I was working with my partner, because...
The exercise videos you're referring to.
because it was like, we got this, we're out here. And he set it up, and we were supposed to walk in, and I left everything in New York to come out to California thinking, this is it.
So you thought hitting the ground running.
Oh,
you were
I
already
came
on
in
your path.
flying and thought that, and things just started falling apart one after the other, and then I had another one. I was Al Wilson, show and tell, rest in peace, Al. I was his musical director for like 3 years.
A good person to be affiliated with.
Yeah, and I actually produced his records and did all this stuff, and it just plateaued, and
But it may have plateaued, but it was like when we started the segment, like I was saying, it's our highs in our entertainment business. I mean, it was still considered, it still validated you.
Yeah.
Right, because I mean, like with the movie business, I feel validation as you keep progression with the movie, and then the next movie, and then the next movie after that. It's like still walking up that ladder, and there's a lot of good that comes from it. I mean, we can save for the next segment of the lows, but for right now, I mean, with those highs, you just want that. It's like the train leaving the station. You want to just keep progressing forward from the next high to the high after that and continuing. And it sounds like your journey with your highs and the people you were affiliated with. It's pretty good. That's a pretty good track record, my friend.
Thanks, and then I played in so many bands, good bands.
Okay.
And every gig I do, basically, I play like this is it. There's never a day off.
There's never no tomorrow.
Never
this
no
is
tomorrow.
the last.
It's always like left all there. So I was traveling with these bands, and I just thought, boom, I'm gonna make it. Like, here it comes. This is the night. And then along with that, you find all of these people, producers come in,
Right.
promise you this and promise you that and tell you this and tell you that, and you call, and it's just not in existence. Then they want you to do this one thing, or these one or two things that just don't equate to what they had told you when they met you.
But that feeling of being wanted, though, may not be the exact direction you want at the moment, but at least you have people wanting you. They want to go on that journey with you. I mean, don't you feel that? And again, I'm not saying that's the perfect world here, and that's not exactly what you want as an artist, but the fact that you've got people that are interested. How do I say this? You feel like you're a star because you want it, because everybody wants a piece of you. They want to be on that train with you. They want that success that you're achieving. They want part of it. Did you feel some of that along the way?
Yeah, to some degree.
Okay.
And I also felt it was a need that I needed,
So you fed off of one another.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's addicting. It's.
Thank you. That's the word I was trying to search for, and I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
addicting.
So it's not to bounce back, but it's like taking that special drug or that special.
Yeah.
It's like
it brings you to the promised land. And that's what I mean with the film industry too, with making movies. It just seems like if people want you, that energy's there. That energy keeps building. And being out in California, that energy seems to be a little bit different possibly than it was for you in New York.
Yeah.
Likewise with me back in Chicago. And don't get me wrong, New York and Chicago are great towns. It's our humble beginnings. But there's something here in Los Angeles that brings us that specific high that makes it go better. So when we come back off the break, we're talking about the highs here. With these highs, there are some serious drop-offs. Let me just say it the way it is, audience. There's some really down and dirty lows. I've experienced it being in the film business. Stanley, we've had some conversation, and you can fill in the audience. You've had your share of lows too, right?
Oh, yes.
All right,
Yes.
so when we come back, Mr. Stanley Butler has given us a lot of his successes, but audience, please listen in because there are some really deep down lows that bring us to the heights that we are today. So please stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back to Tell My Story. I'm here with my special guest, Stanley Butler. As we were leading in the break, we were talking about the highs that Stanley's gone through with the musical industry and myself being in the movie industry. As we were closing into the break, we were talking about going into some of the lows, and I mean deep depression lows. And what that comes from is because when I think you think you're hitting your pinnacle of being a star, and then you take some reflection back because we've hit that curveball now. We know how to hit it. And some of the youngins that are coming into the business right now, they don't have what we call the battle wounds of what it is to have some of the lows. So another reason why I keep promoting it this way, but please, he's my special guest, my first guest, and the best guest I could have would be Stanley. So Stanley, coming back, and again, if I'm cutting you off, because I know I don't mean it deliberately, but I do know that there's a lot of educational things you can tell the younger audience members and some of the adults in this audience who know your history but maybe not know some of the lows. I want you to interject some of this right now and let us all know what's going on. So again, I'm here with Stanley Butler. Stanley, let's bring him some of the lows, my friend.
Well, the lows come after the highs.
Okay.
And I've bounced up and down daily. I cry. I seek, you go out and you reach to just find this acceptance that it seems like you don't get because, I dreamt that I would be world known at a point.
Okay.
And that didn't happen. But then there's this fire that lives inside of you that you actually think you can over and over and over and over again. Okay? And then, I'm taking these highs and lows home to my family. I leave and I come back one day and what's wrong with him? And he's down. Then, I lock myself up in my studio. Then you get this high, you think you're back on it. Then, the audiences, sometimes it's, as much as I perform, it's almost sometimes painful because you're playing for this applause. It's sometimes you're not even playing for the song. You're just playing to see if am I accepted? I mean, did I do what I've been doing for the last 40, 50 years? Does this all make sense? And
So if I'm hearing you correctly, with this ebb and flow of the highs and lows and bringing it home to the family, and then waiting for that acceptance on stage when you're, for the lack of a better word here, just kind of going through the motion because you're waiting for the applause to make sure you're accepted. With all of that building, though, with that all building, with all that being said, there's got to be one finite moment where you have your deepest low. I know we all go through it. I've been through my share, but let the audience know what the one the true one that you can just hang your hat on, because that deep low is an educational moment that you always keep in the back of your mind, like a filing system in the cabinet, that you always use as an educational point for yourself. There's one. Let us know. Let the audience know the one particular one.
I'd have
which
to
stands out.
quitting.
Quitting.
Yeah, over and over, quitting. You just want to stop. It's painful. It's a painful art that you choose because you're not where you think you want to be, and you're an actor. And
Right.
like I said, the first time I saw you, I thought you were straight out of Hollywood cast, like Richard Gere himself.
Well, I thank you for that, but let me put it to you this way, though, Stanley. A lot of moments for myself, speaking for myself, a lot of moments I had deep depression moments where I thought I was going nowhere in this business, that I made a big mistake. See, as guys, and you and I'm sure you can interject with me on this, and again, thank you for the props. I do appreciate it very much. We as men, we think that we can carry all this emotion and everything on our shoulders, and we can camouflage it and hide it. And there were many moments where I just put myself in a dark room, and it's a learning experience, audience, and I'm proud to say, there were moments where you're kind of crying, and it's hurtful, and there were moments where and I understand that, learning from some of the actors that have been in the business longer than I have, my favorite drink of choice has always been whiskey. And there have been moments where that whiskey bottle came very close to my heart because I would just drink one too many, and that doesn't help either. So my learning point, or my low point, would be monitoring myself to make sure that you never let the lows get too low, because it hurts you in the long run. Am I gathering that that's where you're actually, for me? I found some dark moments in my life.
I live in it. Almost still today, every performance is, you battle it before you start, because you're still dealing with the audience. And it's not like I play only for the applause. It's you just for validation. It's like, because I play from the ground up. I love to play. But sometimes it just feels like it's not valid, because I'm not doing the Grammy shows and playing with this setting and that setting. So you're playing these clubs, and sometimes there's like 3 people there.
It's an insecurity moment, isn't it? Where you just think that, why am I doing this? I'm getting nowhere with this.
Yeah.
It's a passion. Don't get us wrong. And Stanley can back me up on it. It's a passion that we love, that we want to do. But there are those moments that we're thinking we may have made a big mistake. I'm gathering, speaking for myself, and Stanley could speak for himself on that point. But that's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah, especially now, because, I have my family, and I look at, friends of mine that come to see me play in the audience, and I'm feeling this. And, we'll talk, and they're retired. And I know I'm never going to be able to retire. That's what it feels like,
Yeah, I'm with you.
And, you want to give these things to your family. That's what it's all about. And sometimes your family doesn't understand, or they don't know why you're doing this. But we're all men, and regardless of what job we have, driving a truck or whatever, it's the same purpose,
Right.
We could appear like we're not working, but we're still working.
We're still working, correct.
And like I said, you're running these people, and I'm retired, and I play in the resorts and stuff, and they could afford to come to these places, and it gets to me more like now, like where did I go wrong in life? Should I have done that? You see?
We'll be right back to tell my story. I'm here with Mr. Stanley Butler. I'm your host, Marcus Lantero. Hello and welcome back to Tell My Story. I'm here with my special guest, Stanley Butler, and we're discussing the lows of the independent artist and what we have to go through to achieve our successes. So Stanley,
Yes.
that was a mouthful for me to finish up. So please, my friend, what do you think about the lows? I mean, what was that pinnacle low again? What was that one that sticks in your mind?
I remember once I broke one of my instruments, you know. I got so frustrated, I just slammed it, broke it, crying. It's more like just a combination that it's a daily struggle. You know, the highest performances where you get standing ovations maybe, but in the end of the day, everybody leaves and you got to pack up all of this equipment, you know, because I'm the band leader. So I'm carrying this PA into my car. My back hurts. Nobody's there. It's cold. Then I got an hour and change drive all the time, because where I live, the city I live in, it's away from every place I play.
Okay.
And, you know, just the loneliness of...
You get time to think.
Yeah.
And sometimes thinking is the worst thing.
Yeah, and just not knowing what success truly is, I think, is where it hits us now, because we're always comparing ourselves to our peers who happen to be on TV or whatever.
Oh, I get that. I understand that. And for
and-
myself, it's like in between takes. You know, you should be kind of studying or thinking about your lines or something of that nature. And you bring up such a valid point. You know, your mind sometimes drifts away, and you're thinking about, well, would such and such be doing this, or how would they be doing it? And you second guess and third guess yourself. So I understand exactly where you're coming
Yeah,
from a
and-
musician standpoint.
And, you know, you have to live this life to everyone else, cause...
Well, yeah, speaking of that, so you had mentioned earlier this life for everybody else, your family. I find sometimes that, and it's hard to justify to your family what you're doing, because I think sometimes they're thinking, okay, you know, we need to put food on the table, clothes on our back, make a mortgage payment, electric payment. You think maybe it's time to give this up and maybe try your hand at something that gives you a consistent paycheck. You get that feeling?
Oh,
Is that like responsibility? What do you think?
Well, yeah, especially earlier, because my wife, she carried a lot of the weight while I was trying to get it together.
Mm-hmm.
She carried it, but, you know, and of course that brings a lot of tension in the home.
Yeah.
And a lot of arguing, because you reach a certain point where they don't understand that if you quit, you're actually quitting on them. Because in any life, no matter what we do, like say if we're a truck driver or whatever, it's the same. We're still working.
Right.
But if a truck driver quits, it's no different, because you've given up on yourself. And when you have a family, that you have to stay strong, you know.
Right,
Because
right.
once you quit, you're able to quit on any other thing you do. You can bounce from job to job and never be happy. So I think what families sometimes don't understand is, though we keep going, it's really for the strength. And, you know, you're carrying the strength of your family. And then again, the depression that could create in ourselves, that instead of bringing it home after a gig, you'll be living it, you know, at a certain age that we reach. You know, we're grown men. We're not like 21 years old where, oh, we move on to the next thing.
Right, right.
This hurts if we quit.
I think people sometimes they don't understand where the hurt comes from, because being men, we're supposed to be able to carry all of this stress, these heartaches, these disappointments. And when people see us, be it on the screen or on the stage, it's all the glory, all the glitz. but it's the backdrop of those stories and the heartaches. And I'm not saying that there's not heartaches, like you mentioned, being a truck driver, accountant, whatever, that they have their pitfalls. But being in this kind of industries, I've just never seen a door shut so many times on you. Some of the verbiage that comes from the people saying you're not worthy of the profession really takes and puts you on, sets you back. And then it compounds a little bit when you kind of vocalize things and you have family members. And I'm not saying they're doing it intentionally. They're doing it for the well-being of the kids, the husband, the wife, whatever, the family, utilities, whatever it takes. That it gets compounded by that, and the stress level sometimes just becomes unbelievable. Or if you're doing gigs, that you're doing them for minimal scale, or sometimes you're just doing it just for exposure, I'm guessing. So you're out there and they're not even paying gigs. That puts a stress, because sometimes the wife or the husband says, well, why are you doing this for free? I go to work every day, but at least I come home with a paycheck.
Oh, yeah, I feel.
And then on the flip side, you see you're either on camera or you're on stage, and they see all of the pomp and circumstance and all the glory of everything, but the heartaches, they take their toll as well.
Sure.
What you're expressing is a lot of.
Also, they don't understand in our profession that we're forced to compare. We're forced to compare ourselves to our peers, like whoever we think have made it. It's a natural thing that we have to do. So it's a constant emotional battle.
Competitive.
And then there are some, like, for instance, I'm a lead person. I sing and perform. And then you have, in music, you have sidemen who can have a job and play on the weekends.
Correct.
Or in your profession, you could probably have guys that just, they want to, what do you, extras,
correct.
Extra.
They can bounce from project to project where you're locked into it. And again, it's not a bad thing, and it's not a bad thing for extras or sidemen.
Right.
I mean, but when you're the lead, you're dedicated to a specific project, and that project, everybody's leaning on the individual, be it you, myself, or whoever, to make it happen. Where the extras or the sides, they get to go and partake and get a paycheck and other venues.
Yeah.
I'm guessing is where you're coming from. And I think the audience needs to understand some of that too.
Yeah, and like at times I don't have the time to do that, because then, like I've said to my wife many times, then I'd be this, I don't want to take it out on them.
Right.
Like, I quit because of you.
Yeah, but you don't want them to be the crutch or them to be the guilt party to it.
Right,
But
right.
Some very interesting topics that we've been speaking about today, and the highs and lows of everything that's going on. I'll tell you, I'll tell you when we get back off this break, we've got some other news that we'll go through with you, but please stand by. Hello once again. Welcome back. My special guest here, Mr. Stanley Butler. Tell my story. Man, time flies, my friend. This is our last segment of the show today, and I think this segment's an important one, Stanley, and if I can address the audience and then let you take it from here. For myself, we both independent artists, but if this is the plateau, where we're at today as artists, and we're happy to be artists, so please don't take this the wrong way or in the wrong light. But I mean, if this is the worst, the best, the epicenter of what we do for our livelihood and what we're at, and we enjoy what we're doing, no matter if we're getting paid or not getting paid, I want you to let the audience know that aspect of your career as an independent artist. I know for myself, I'll never give this up, regardless if this is the direction it takes, and this is where we're at, and maybe we're not the big Hollywood actor that a lot of people aspire to be. but we're still in the entertainment business. We're still doing it. We still have focus, direction, the spirit, and we want to project that to you, the audience, because we have the love for the audience as well as the love of what we're doing. So for myself, I appreciate every project I get that I'm involved in. I appreciate doing this television series and being the host to interview such great people like Stanley Butler. So with that being said, enough of me. We're here to hear Stanley anyway. So Stanley, if this is the best it gets, which we know it could always be better, but let's just say for the moment, this is where we're at. Let the audience know what your feelings are as an independent artist, as a person that takes your craft, and it is a craft, seriously. So please.
I think it's been a gradual progression for me. As far as the acceptance, if that's to use the word of if it's going to be, it's what's going to be. I love what I do. I feel I'm pretty good at what I do. And everything was living within me anyway. You know, the pain was living within me. The dreams were living within me. And when you crash, everything like burns up. There's always ashes left after it burns.
Okay.
And
interesting analogy, but okay.
Okay, and I'm just going to rise out from the ashes and just kind of accept where it floats. And I think one of those nights that I was talking about when I was carrying my equipment, carrying these speakers back to my car, is when it hit me that this is probably it, you know. And it didn't matter how well whatever that performance was or whatever. I'd have to give credit to the Lord above for enlightening me to see where the true priorities in life are.
Well put, my friend. Well put.
You know, it's my life has been okay. I've accepted myself. That's basically what it came to. And it took to all these evolvements to get to that point to go, you know, you're okay. And, you know, even in my smaller performances there, I see I'm blessing people as they bless me back. You know, people come to see me. You see some of the familiar faces come over and over again. And they tell you these things about yourself that it equals up to the same value that maybe these guys that we think of as stars get, you know. But it feels real now. You know, it feels like it's enough, you know. And you see people that know you that you don't remember them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I've been following you for years, and I'm really, you know, like little instances. And, you know, and then above all, too, it's family. Like you start seeing, you know, you're getting up there in age, and, you know, I got grandkids now, and they come by. And the things that I thought I wanted to do, like fly all over the world, I feel I'm going to get to do that. I just might have to pay for it, you know? And, you know, I got my grandson. I remember when he was being born, I was going to go on this audition. I went for this audition on this gig, and I thought I was definitely going to get this gig. But I didn't get the gig. But I realized that I had to be there for him and my daughter in the situation that we were going through. And it far outweighed. If I was away, there's no way they would have survived. I feel that. I had to play this role. So it's like I like to say, you know, nature just takes its course.
Well, with that, I mean, I think that's the perfect analogy. We'll be right back to tell my story. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in today to tell my story and to my special guest, Stanley Butler. Until then, have a great day. God bless, and thank you for watching.